It tells a story about King David. King David, a man after God's own heart. Now, King David had wives and concubines. He was a very attractive man by any standards. The Bible says King David not only had a heart after God, but he was beautiful to look upon. He stood about a head taller than most of the other men. He had beautiful hair, a beautiful smile. We'd say today he had a lot of charisma. Now, King David had a lot of, as I said, he had wives and concubines. He could have anybody he wanted. Well, one night, King David, it was springtime. His army was out to war, because that's when they went to war in the Bible days, in the springtime. King David couldn't sleep, so he's like, what am I going to do? I can't sleep. Didn't have television back then. So he thought, what do I do? I think I'll take a walk on the roof. Nice spring night, see what it feels like out there. Well, back then in the Bible days, the roofs of the palace, they weren't like we have the pitch roofs now. They were flat, so you could walk out along. Well, little bit known to David, at the same time, across the courtyard, there was a woman named Bathsheba. And Bathsheba, she just, how do I put it? Well, that time of the month, she just got done, So she decided to go out, it's middle of the morning, it's 2 o'clock in the morning probably. Nobody's around, no one's going to see her. Oh, geez, I think I'll go bathe in the moonlight and cleanse myself. So she goes out, unbeknown to her, anybody's around. Thing is, though, Satan knows what's going on. King David's up on top of the roof, and he's looking out after the courtyard, over the courtyard, and he's like, woo, he spies this beautiful-looking woman, most gorgeous woman he'd ever seen in his life. And she's all naked there, bathing in the sunlight with a full moon, and he's looking at her, and he's like, oh. Yeah, he's got a lot of wives, but he's never seen a woman look this good. And he was just so entranced by her beauty that he went to one of the guards, and he said, I just saw the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. The guard said, that must be Bathsheba. Now, can you imagine being so beautiful that someone says, I just saw the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life? And they say, oh, that must be Sally. Can you imagine being that beautiful? Well, that is how beautiful Bathsheba was. So what's David do? He says, oh, he sends for her. Go get her. Bring her here. Bathsheba comes. Unfortunately, David, the man after God's own heart, gets into a place where he shouldn't be getting into. And he becomes intimate with Bathsheba. Well, nobody really knows this, and he sends her on his way. She goes home on her way. Well, not too long later, unfortunately, Bathsheba is pregnant. So she sends word to David. King David, I'm pregnant. Her husband Uriah is out fighting for the country. Well, everybody's going to know he didn't get her pregnant. So what are we going to do? Well, David had a couple of choices. Well, back in those days, the punishment for adultery was stoning to death. Now, David wasn't afraid of dying. He was a great warrior. But who wants to die a shameful death of being stoned to death? So he had two choices. One, he could admit his sin and get stoned to death. Or two, he could cover it up. David chose to cover it up. So what's he do? He sends for her husband. He says, go get him. Bring him out of the fields and bring him here. So, he figures he can bring him home and he can be with his wife and then be none the wiser. Well, he brings them home, and Uriah is a very faithful man, and he never goes home. He sleeps with the servants and stuff at the palace on the floor by the door. David says, what are you doing? You've got a beautiful wife at home. Why aren't you home? Uriah, being a man of honor, says, I can't do that. How can I let my fellow men go out and sleep in tents and fight for you, my king who I love, and enjoy my wife? David says, what are we going to do here? He says, okay, well, you can stay a couple more days. Then he says, what can I do? He invites Uriah to dinner. He brings him to dinner. He says, I know what I'll do. I'll feed him a bunch of wine. Most of us know what wine does. So he brings him in, and he feeds him a bunch of wine, and he gets him totally sloshed, if you'll excuse the expression. I mean, he's so drunk, this guy can hardly walk. So he thought, surely he'll go home to his beautiful wife now. But David wasn't expecting something. Uriah, even in his drunken stupor, was more honorable than King David, and still slept with the other servants on the floor at the door and never went home and enjoyed his wife. Well, now King David's in a real pickle. What are we going to do here? So he calls in his head guy from the army. Hey, Joab, what are we going to do here? thinking. Then he writes a letter to Joab. And he gives it to Uriah. And in the letter he tells Joab, he says, take Uriah and put him in the front line of the army. Now we all know the most dangerous place in the army, if we're in the army, in any branch of service, is when you get in the front line. He says, after you get him up there, pull back. Got to cover this sin. So what happens? Uriah, good, faithful soldier, takes his letter. Unbeknown to him, he's taken his own death sentence. Takes it, gives it to Joab, puts him in the front line. Word comes back. Bathsheba, you're a widow. Husband was killed in duty. So what's David do? Then he goes marries Bathsheba to cover up the sin, unbeknown to anyone that he was the one that got her pregnant. And this was a man after God's own heart. Was he perfect? Hardly. Hardly. Did he love the Lord? Yes, he did. Did the Lord forgive him? Yeah. Did he get punished for it? Well, let's look. If you keep reading along, you'll find out that Bathsheba had the child. Unfortunately, when the child wasn't too old, the child got very, very sick and died. And if you keep reading, you'll see what sin does. As David went on and had more children, he had another son, and he had daughters, and as time went on, one of his sons ended up raping one of his half-sisters. Why? Because if you ask any psychologist, they'll tell you that it all goes in a circle. You can trace down to your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and even an atheist psychologist will tell you that it all goes in the circle till you break the cycle. They agree with the word. I don't want to get off track here. My simple point today was, what is a Christian? A Christian is a person who not only accepts Jesus Christ into their heart, but means it and has a personal relationship with him. And as you go on, he becomes a lot less like the relative that visits on holidays and more like the one that shares the room down the hall. Isn't the way you dress, what you drive for a car, what you do for work, whether you go to church, don't go to church, or where you go. Being a Christian is having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, period. It isn't whether you got purple hair. It isn't whether you have an earring in your nose. It's not whether you have a beer after work. Or whether you lose your temper once in a while. Because quite honestly, we all lose our temper. And honestly, folks, sin is sin. Whether you're out there with the one who cares about you most. So if there's anybody out there watching who's never accepted Christ into their heart, who doesn't have a personal relationship with him, then please, right now, or when it's done, because you don't have to go to a church to do it. You don't have to do it with me. You don't have to have somebody there to do it. Just say the simple prayer and ask God to come into your heart and mean it. And that's all you need to get to heaven. It's not a bunch of rules and regulations. I feel sad for people who think it is. You know, I have a daughter, and she's a big girl. She's only 13, but she stands like this big to me, and she's already outgrown my shoes. She outgrew my clothes when she was about 10. Not that I'm all that big. But back when she was probably about, I think she was around 8, we used to live in this apartment building, and a little girl upstairs was smaller than her, same age. But my daughter, Farrah, was never a fighter. Well, a little girl upstairs was a fighter. Every day she'd come in, Mama, she hit me. And every day it was like the neighborhood bully was beating her up even though she was bigger. And what I did the last time, Wasn't all that Christianly. I told her, I said, you know what you do, honey? I said, you double up your fists and you poke her right in the nose as hard as you could poke her. She did it. The kid never hit her again. My point is each time that she came to the door, I used to have a thing on my refrigerator, like, you know, whether she brushed her teeth, made her bed, did her chores, da-da-da-da. I didn't go and look on that piece of paper and say, okay, well, do I open the door? No, she hasn't brushed her teeth. She didn't do the dishes. We have to let her stay out there and get beat up. Why? Because I love my daughter. And it's the same way with Christ. He doesn't keep a checklist. Well, you've done this, so ooh, you ain't done this. Well, we're not going to help you. If we love our children that much, He loves us even more for who you are on the inside, not what you do. I want to share something with you really quick as I wrap this up that the Lord gave to me one day. It's a poem I had written about an atheist talking to Jesus, and it's called I Must Ask. It goes, you died for me, so they say, on a cross in a shameful way. But Jesus, I must ask, do you know my simple past? Do you know my simple past? Do you know what I used to be before you died on Calvary? Jesus said, my lovely child, yes, I knew all the while. But I wasn't sent to condemn, but to share God's love with you and to lead you to the truth. But Jesus, I'm not worthy. I've done many things. I've broken most of the commandments, just to mention a few. My child, don't you see? All your sins, they died with me. They're forgiven, forgotten, lost at sea. No one is worthy, no one but I. That's why I alone was sent to die and rise again. But you too can live for eternity. Jesus, tell me, how can that be? Open your heart, confess to me that you believe. All you must do is ask, and you too can live for eternity. And that's how simple it is. Because you see, in the eyes of God, you are already perfect. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you'll tune in again. And if anyone watching has a prayer request or any feedback that you'd like to share with us, we'd really appreciate it. You can send that to Post Office Box 235, West Rockport, Maine, 04865. And if you'd like a response back, please enclose a self-addressed envelope, stamped envelope, and we'll make sure we get back to you. Thank you very much, and God bless you.